Hey guys, tonight we step through a threshold that hasn't felt this alive in centuries. Fingertips grazing damp stone carvings that pulse under your touch like a living heartbeat as torchlight dances across blood-reddened hieroglyphs, and you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below with your location and local time so we can all share where we're tuning in from. Now take a seat, have a warm cup of tea, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand at the yawning door of the forgotten temple, centuries of dust and decay swirling in your torch's glow. The air tastes like iron and moss, and somewhere deep inside you, anticipation rattles like a loose gear. Your boots scrape on cracked flagstones, slick with centuries of condensation echoing down the corridor, as though something unseen mirrors your steps. You reach out, brushing away sticky cobwebs, to reveal a massive stone gate carved with serpents coiling around a grotesque face. The eyes of the idol seem to watch the people, followed by time, but brimming with silent accusation. With a deep breath, you press both arms against the cold surface and feel vibration barely perceptible underground. It's as if the temple itself hums a greeting of the room, a low bird rumbling beneath your face. The ground shifts tiny pebbles, skittering under your soles, and the gate cracks along an imperceptible seam. You lean forward, heart hammering, as dust motes swirl like spectral dances in your torchlight. Then, without warning, the door slides open with a sound like a wounded animal's last breath, unveiling a gaping corridor swallowed by impenetrable darkness. Your pulse skips. You lift the torch higher, its feeble flame, casting jittery shadows that race around jagged walls. You swallow a lump of dread and step inside. The threshold closes behind you with a thunderous finality, no machinery, no hinges, just the silent collapse of centuries-old rock. You whirl, but there's nothing left but blank wall. The exit you came through is gone. A cold panic blooms in your chest. You grip the torch's handle so tightly, your knuckles blanch. Somewhere ahead, dripping water echoes like distant footsteps. Your mind flashes to home, a warm couch sunlight, through a window, the steady tick of a clock. But those memories feel absurdly distant now, like someone else's life. Here you are alone, with silence and stone. You forge ahead. Each footfall sparks fresh echoes, and your torch beam reveals carvings of long-dead priests, their arms raised in silent supplication to gods both merciful and vengeful. You trace one serpent's fang with a trembling finger and shiver as if cold had wriggled down your spine. This place wants something from you. Your respect, your fear, or perhaps your very soul. You round a corner and come face to face with a collapsed archway, jagged limestone teeth jutting towards the floor. You crouch and squeeze through a narrow gap, scraping your shoulder against rough rock. A sharp pain stabs, but you grit your teeth and press on. Every bruise and sting is proof you're still moving, still fighting. The corridor opens into a wider hall, where skeletal columns rise like watchful sentinels. Their capitals bloom with entwined vines and animal skulls so lifelike you hardly expect them to twitch. Between the columns, alcoves hold shattered pottery and gourds cracked to reveal mummified scenes. You crouch to inspect the long brittle husks that crumble at your touch, leaving only dust. You pocket a shard, wondering if these offerings once pleased some ancient holy. You stand and notice the far wall is lined with niches, each containing a carved mask. Sorrowful faces roaring beasts, twisted smiles, their hollow eyes glimmer in your torchlight, and for a heartbeat you swear one flickers to move you as though alive. Breath catching you, force yourself to keep walking, every nerve screaming to flee back to that sealed gate, but there is no turning back. Somewhere beyond the next bend, water drips in uneven rhythm, like a metronome counting down your time. You reach out to steady yourself against a column, and your palm comes away stained with damp moss and ancient grime. You rub it on your pants, but the chill lingers. You swallow hard, reminding yourself that despite every instinct screaming danger, you chose this journey, and now you will see it through. A sudden gust of stale air brushes past, stirring the torch's flame into a frantic dance. You inhale tasting dust and something sweeter decay or incense you can't tell. You step forward into thicker darkness, torch held aloft like a tiny sun in a cave of shadows, ready or not for whatever comes next. You step forward, torch aloft, and the corridor yawns wider as the flickering flame casts trembling light against flaked walls. Each footfall sends droplets of condensation plinking onto uneven stones, the sound echoing like distant raindrops in a cave. You taste dampness on your tongue, a metallic tang that conjures memories of iron blood or rust you can't tell which. Your heart still hammers from that first door slamming shut, but you force yourself to inhale slowly, letting the amber glow steady your shaking hand. The air is dense and heavy, saturated with the scent of mildew, and something faintly full of incense perhaps long since burned. You twist your head, scanning alcoves where half-eroded statues stand guard like silent priests. They're draped in blanket, their faces worn into inscrutable masks, but you swear you catch their eyes tracking your every move. Every time your torch swings past, you glimpse a carved lip curling in smoke or silent warning. Ahead, the corridor branches into twin halls. You pause, listening. Faint beyond the drip, 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 a hollow murmur drifts barely more than a breath, a chant in a language you don't recognize. It's low, rhythmic, almost as if the temple itself is chanting its judgment. You swallow toes curling inside your boots, and your torchlight quivers as though it senses your pulse. Instinct screams turn back, turning things retreating into sealed darkness. You steel yourself and choose the left passage. The chant grows louder, weaving through the dark like chill fingers. Each step carries you deeper into a throbbing hush, broken only by your ragged breaths and that relentless dripping echo. You imagine unseen figures, monks or guardians, lurking just out of sight, watching your progress with ancient curiosity. As you advance, the walls narrow and the ceiling lowers, forcing you to hunch. The torch flame sputters against a gust of stale air. You lean in and discover a fissure overhead, a trickle of water glistening before it plummets into your path. You lift a palm to catch a drop. It's icy cold, and for a moment you blink disoriented by the contrast to the muggy heat. You taste it pure and frighteningly ancient, as though you've sipped centuries of memory. The chant morphs into irregular whispers, as if startled by your steps, then retreats. Your torch casts long shadows that dance across carved pillars, revealing patterns of intertwining snakes and lotus blooms. One snake's eye, carved in obsidian, catches the light in a sudden glint, and you swear it blinks. You whirl torch, grazing your elbow, but only stone meets steel. Your breath hitches, and every instinct screams that those carvings are alive, or at least aware. You press on, rounding a jagged corner into a vaulted chamber. The architecture shifts here. The roof arches like an inverted temple ship, ribs of stone curving overhead. Faint inscriptions weave around you, prayers to gods you've never heard, promises of power, please be listening. Your torchlight rose greedily, illuminating a dais in the center, where a basin of water reflects your distorted silhouette. You approach toes brushing frayed tapestry remnants that rustle with unseen motion. You lean over the basin. The water's surface ripples, without wind distorting your reflection into something hollow and haunting. You peer closer, heart pounding, as your eyes scan beneath the surface of what treasure a hidden key. No rugged or murky depths. Still, the water shudders as if something stirred in its cold embrace. You jerk back, knocking your torch against a column. Sparks dance across a carved relief of serpents, entwining a cloud of stone light that startles you. A solitary chant note echoes suddenly, reverberating off every surface, like a temple bell tolling your arrival. You spin, torch raking shadows as the sound dies, leaving only the plink of water. You realize you're clutching the torch so tightly, your knuckles ache. You loosen your grip, forcing your hand to steady. You remind yourself that breathing is the only way forward. Inhale, steady, exhale, move. You step away from the basin, following energy pulsing through the air. The carvings here feel fresher, raw etchings that seem turned within the last century, not millennia. You crouch to inspect them, brushing dust aside to reveal a sequence of symbols, glyphs of a spiral eye, a bleeding heart, a hand cupped open. They form a pattern you don't understand, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you sense it's a warning. Turn back before you become ours. A drip echoes, drip, drip. You trace the sound to the far wall, where water seeps from a joint between stones. You press an ear to the cold surface and hear the chants return, carried through the dripping soft syllables of an morphs into footsteps, soft, deliberate, coming from somewhere ahead. You freeze, torch wavering. The walls ripple in the flames' dancing light, and you strain to separate echo from reality. Footstep, pause, footstep, pause. They match your heartbeat, a stark reminder that you aren't alone. A bead of sweat trickles down your temple. You lift your torch higher, searching for the source, but all you find are shadowed recesses where light dares not linger. The last drop falls from a corroded metal nozzle overhead, and the sound cracks like a bone breaking. You jump heart in your throat and sprint forward, torch beam slicing frantic paths. Your boots skid on wet stone. You nearly drop the torch as you skid through an opening into another corridor. The chant vanishes. The dripping hush resumes. You slam to a halt, chest-heaving toes at the threshold. You glance back, the passage yawns, empty, still drenched in damp echoes. But you know footsteps won't wait. Whatever lurks beyond the darkness is stalking you, still hungry for something you carry. You swallow hard breath, shuddering. You lift your torch, let its flame calm to a steady glow. Ahead, the corridor rises gently, and you see a faint shimmer, torchlight reflecting on polished stone. Hope flares. Maybe this leads to a grand chamber, an exit, or clues to an escape. You push forward each step, weighted by dripping fears and rising determination. The echoes trail behind you like ghosts. You meet them head-on. You trudge onward, torchlight your own companion, as distant chants fade into static hush. Every drip, every whisper vibrates in your bones. But you keep going deeper into the temple's hungry heart, because turning back is no longer an option. Press onward into the corridor's hush, every step careful, every breath measured until the walls shift again. Narrowing until tunnels so tight, you can feel the rough stone pressing against your shoulders. Your torch sputters as you twist sideways, scraping your jacket sleeve across coarse rock. A single drop of sweat falls to the floor, hissing as it lands, and you realize how silent everything has become. No drip, no whisper, just your heartbeat echoing in your ears. Then a deep rumble vibrates through the tunnel floor. You skid to a halt, torch shaking in your hand. The walls tremble, dust cascading from overhead cracks into your hair and down your neck. You swallow hard, mouth dry, as the rumble grows like the roar of some subterranean beast awakening. You inch backward, but the tunnel is too narrow, there's nowhere to run. Suddenly a crack splits the ceiling above you, jagged and screaming. Rock shards rain down, and you drop to your knees, torch angled upward to catch the collapse in its amber glow. Plumes of dust shoot into the air, setting your lungs on fire as you choke and gag. You wave the torch to clear the haze, coughing hard, pounding so fiercely it feels like it might burst free of your ribcage. Through the swirling cloud, you make out massive limestone slabs, fracturing along ancient fault lines. One by one they begin to shift, first with a low grind, then crashing free. You scramble backward on bleeding palms, shards of rock biting into your skin as the ceiling surrenders to gravity. The first slab slams down mere inches from your head, sending a shockwave through your skull. You grit your teeth, fighting the urge to scream. Pain bleeds in your shoulders and back. You scrape the stone, sending hot welts up your spine. As the first slabs fall, a second roar echoes behind you. The corridor entrance you slithered through quakes with the same force. You twist and glimpse fresh cracks racing down the wall, like spider veins bursting with pressure. Panel flares. The entire corridor is unraveling. You push to your feet, torch held high, digging heels into the uneven stones. Your boots slip in wet seepage, forcing you to scramble for handholds. You cling to the wall, fingers trembling. A massive block bigger than you plummets from above. Dart left torch, skittering across your palm until the handle bites into your flesh. You grit your teeth, torch arm spasm, throwing sparks onto the dust-choked air. The block crashes where you just stood, fracturing the floor and sending splinters of rock flying like shrapnel. You feel the shockwave in your stomach, as if an invisible fist slammed into you. Your breathing comes in ragged gasps, your chest tightens. You need to move. Somewhere ahead, you remember a junction, a widening of the corridor where you hope to find another passage. But to reach it, you must survive this collapsing tunnel. You swallow saliva tinged with blood and hurl yourself forward, torch raised body scraping on stone as the ceiling collapses around you. Rocks pummel your back and shoulders as you slide through the narrowing gap. Each slab feels like a battering ram crushing your hope. You hear wood-like snapping, ancient wooden supports giving way under centuries of rot. The walls themselves echo with creaks and groans, as if the temple mourns its own decay. You imagine the walls closing in, eager to reclaim every foot of space. You reach the mouth of the junction, arms burning, lungs aflame. You rip yourself forward, torch spilling sparks onto dusty stones. Behind you, the corridor floods with thunderous cracks. You don't look back. You throw yourself into the wider hall, skidding in pain across the threshold as the tunnel behind you shudders and groans, then collapses in a final deafening roar. The ground shakes bits of rubble, shooting into the junction like missiles. You gasp for air, coughing as dust swirls and torches glow. The jackets clear, crimson streaks line your forearms with angry grazes. Your breath is coming short, frantic bursts, each one a victory. You press a trembling hand to your chest, feeling your pulse throbbing with desperate celebration. For a heartbeat, you think you're safe until you whip your torch around and see the wall behind you fractured, buckled inward with force enough to block the only exit. Your stomach twists, the rubble mound reaches chest height, a jagged barrier of shattered stone that seals off any chance of turning back. You inch closer, torchlight flickering across it, mapping every boulder, every spike of broken rock. It's impermeable, no way through it, no way under, no way around the confined space. Silence follows thick and mocking. The dust settles, and the only sound is your own ragged breathing echoing on the ceiling. Your mind races fingers, slipping on the torch's handle as you weigh your options. You could claw at the rubble with bleeding hands, but you know there's too much to move. You could shout for help, but your voice would vanish into stone unheard. You could sink to your knees, but surrender has never been your style. You pace the small chamber torchlight, bouncing off carved reliefs on the far wall, urns spilling offerings, hands raised in ritual serpents intertwined. Holy symbols, meant to protect or curse, now they loom over you, silent witnesses to your plight. You press a palm to one serpent's scale carving. The stone is warm from friction, an odd contrast to its surrounding chill. You imagine the snake sliding down to guide you out, but it remains eternally still. Your stomach twists again as you crouch to test the rubble face. Dust trickles between stones. You wedge a small rock between two boulders and twist, but the stones don't budge. You curse under your breath, torchlight dancing as your frustration mounts. You rise and pace again, lungs burning, head pounding from dust and falls. Time ticks by in heavy beats. Inhale, exhale, the rhythmic pulse of desperation. You press back against the corridor's far wall, its torch braced above your head. The heat warms your face, but the rest of you feels icy enough. Trace a finger across a brass ring embedded in the stone. An old anchor for wooden scaffolding, now corroded by centuries of doubt. You tug it, it pops free, and you hold it up like a trophy. A simple ring that may be enough to hook something, maybe enough to help fly a boulder through. Your mind flicks to your surprise, the half-used ration pack in your bag, a stub of a pencil, the lighting tucked in a pocket. Nothing else can break stone. You weigh the ring in your palm, turning it over. A small hope flickering against the walls of despair. Behind you, the distant echo of dripping water reminds you that life flows somewhere beyond these stones. Ahead beyond the barrier, your journey waits, though you can't see it. You can feel it too. You take a shaky breath, grit your teeth, jam the ring's edge into a crack between two boulders. Your hands shake so violently, you're sure you'll drop the torch. Instead, you wedge it between your elbow and hip, securing the flame. With both hands free, you lever the ring against the rock, straining every muscle. Your toes dig into the flagstones, grip faltering as stones shift beneath your boots. Pain radiates through your shoulders and arms, but you don't stop. A rock creaks. A hairline fracture snakes through one of the larger boulders. You press harder, your knuckles turn white. The stone moves an imperceptible shift that feels like a victory. You brace yourself torch, now held under your chin, and push again. The boulder inches forward. Then in a rush of dust and grit, the barrier gives. A narrow gap opens at chest height. You drop to one knee, torchlight illuminating the path ahead, a slim sliver of corridor beyond the rubble. You're trapped, but not defeated. You scoop a handful of gravel aside, widening the gap. Your heart races with triumph and terror. You glimpse flickering torchlight further ahead, more passages waiting, more mysteries demanding to be unraveled. Grip the edges of the stone with bloody fingers and squeeze through the gap torch held high. You emerge on hands and knees into a low-ceilinged tunnel, bone-weary but alive. You lie there for a moment, chest heaving with dust, coating every inch of you. You force your way through a collapsing temple passage, survivor's pride and dread mingling in your veins. Ahead lies darkness, but you've already faced the stone path and won. Gather your strength, clamp the torch between your teeth, and push yourself upright, ready to press deeper into the temple's underground. You press forward into the narrow tunnel, each step reverberating through your bruised muscles. The air grows stale, and every inhalation tastes of damp stone and dust. Your torch casts trembling shadows across draping roots that snake along the ceiling, like veins returning to a buried body. You can still feel your ribs protesting every breath in the aftermath of that collapsing corridor. You force your shoulders back and steady your gaze. Ahead, a faint narrowing suggests a chamber or alcove just out of sight. You round the bend, and your torchlight flickers against stacked plates and battered canvas bags resting in a shallow niche. Your heart lifts evidence that someone before you brought supplies. You kneel and gingerly brush dust off one canvas pack, revealing faded letters in an ancient script. Inside, you find a half-full canteen crusted with mildew, a tin of stale crackers, and a fraying length of rope. Your pulse quickens as you cradle the tin in one hand, canteen in the other. These meager rations are lifelines. You settle cross-legged on the cold floor torch, propped between your knees, and lay everything out before you. The crackers, once soft bread, are now brittle shards that crumble if you look at them wrong. The canteen's metal has dulled to pitted grey, and when you unscrew the cap, a sour smell rises. You sniff cautiously and tilt it toward your lips. The water is cloudy and tastes faintly of minerals, hardly the crisp clarity of a mountain spring, but it will do. You sit savoring life trickling down your throat, settling your shaking frame. You pull out your own pack, finding your personal supplies, 2 energy bars, a small medical kit, and the stub of a pencil you hoped never to use. You count them deliberately 1, 2, clean bandages 2, antiseptic wipes 5, pencil 1. Each count is a test to sanity, a reminder that you still exist in this echoing tomb. Your stomach grumbles, and you eye the tin of crackers, knowing that rationing will be crucial. You can't afford hunger's desperation. You break a cracker in half, kneel the jagged edge to your teeth, and chew slowly. The brittle texture scrapes your gums, and hunger makes it tolerable. You force yourself to swallow deliberately, each bite a vow to endure. The initial relief of taste fades quickly, replaced by the cold ache of emptiness in your belly. You set the tin aside, resolve hardening in your chest like cool lava. Your torch flickers, and you catch movement behind you, just a trick of shadows. You remind yourself of the chanting walls, the whispering stones, the broken idols. You recall the red serpent eyes at the entrance, the obsidian link in the ritual chamber. Fear's coil squeezes your gut, you push it aside. You need clarity, not panic. You jot a note on a scrap of parchment, canteen half full, crackers 10 shards, energy bars 2. You tuck the note into your pack, evidence of progress, proof you haven't lost your mind to this stone labyrinth. Your palms itch from the cramped torch's grip, so you switch hands, flexing every finger. You survey your surroundings. The niche's walls are scrawled with tally marks, crude scratches and repeating groups of 5. You count them 20 across, then another 20 below. 40 marks in total. Someone or multiple someones counted days or hours here. Fear pools in your throat. If they marked time, were they ever rescued, or did they vanish like shadows? You push yourself to stand, torch held aloft, and step back to peer at the tall marks. Their old edges, rounded by time, but still visible. Next to them, a single line of blood is dribbled and darkened to brown. The sight churns your stomach, reminding you that these tunnels demand sacrifices. You swallow hard and muster courage. You trace the tally marks with a fingertip, feeling their ancient grief. You whisper under your breath, I won't become another scratch on the wall. You move to your pack and take out a fresh strip of cloth from the medical kit. You tie it around your palm. It will give you extra grip when you break into the sealed crates ahead and ward off spraying knuckles from fire loose stones. This small gesture of preparation steadies you. feel every ache, shoulders, stiff ribs, sore thighs, trembling. You remember the taste of morning air, outside dew on grass, birdsong, minor miracles, dismissed until you lost them. A pang of longing sharpens your focus. You will see the sun again, feel fresh wind on your face. You open your eyes, resolve heating like forge fire within. You pack away unused crackers, divide them into 2 equal piles, one for tonight, one for tomorrow. You do the same with energy bars. You stash the canteen at the back of the pack, take the note inside the lid so it won't slip out. Each action is deliberate, methodical proof that you still command your mind in this living tomb. No more scavenging in panic. You will ration, plan, and move forward. You swing the torch and scan the niche one last time. The tally marks follow you with silent accusation. They remember those who counted themselves to despair. You offer a silent vow you will not be forgotten. You lift the torch well with free hand against the wall, a rough mosaic of stone and root, and push off into the descending passage ahead. The niche recedes into shadows, cradling its tally marks and empty crates, while you carry only what you need: hope, determination, and the faint glow of your flickering flame. You pick your way down the slick stone ramp, torchlight bouncing off slip walls that curve inward like the belly of some massive beast. Your ribs protest with each breath, a dull ache that reminds you of the collapse behind you. Yet even that physical pain fades beside the chill running through your veins now, because something has changed. The silence is fractured. Behind the drip of water and the distant hum of shifting stone, you hear something new, soft, urgent, impossible to place at first. A faint whisper like breath sliding along rock. You clutch the torch tight and white-knuckled, and the flame flickers in the light. You pause, letting your ears tune in. The whisper comes again, more insistent this time, a sibilant murmur that sails just above your hearing threshold. It feels alive, like a chorus of unseen voices pressed against the walls, begging for warning you can't tell which. Your pulse rockets. You swallow voice caught in your throat. You press the torch closer to the wall, searching for a crack or alcove where the sound might originate. The wall's texture is cold and slick, worn smooth by centuries of moisture. You draw your fingertips along the stone, tracing ancient grooves that still bear carved patterns of twisting vines and lotus petals. Somewhere amid that labyrinth, the voices swirl, teasing your sanity. You whisper back a foolish, reckless reflex, as though your words might draw the spirits into the light. Hello, who's there? Your voice echoes back hollow and distant, folded inside its own reply. No answer comes, but the whispering grows louder, layering upon itself until you feel the walls themselves are speaking. You stagger back, torch held aloft, as though it could keep the voices at bay. The whispering coalesces into soft syllables, half words you almost recognize. Return, return, broken. Your chest tightens and your mind struggles to shape the garbled syllables into meaning. You take a measured breath, recalling the tally marks in the niche behind you and the shattered corridors you escaped. Return what was taken, you mutter half thundering as torchlight trembles. But taken by whom? By this echoing temple, by whoever scratched marks into stone, counting their last hours. You step forward, voice shaking. I don't know what you want. The whispers flicker, retreating into ragged breaths that swirl around your ears. A cold gust brushes past stirring hair across your forehead, and you inhale dust-laced air. Your knees tremble and you clench your jaw. Fear has long since settled around your shoulders like a cloak, but curiosity compels you onward. If the temple whispers, maybe it reveals clues to your escape. You round the corner and find a recessed alcove carved deep into the wall. The torchlight reveals a small circular depression in the stone floor, ringed by fading pictographs. You step inside the hollow ring, silence falls like a curtain. The whispers vanish, leaving only your own breath and the patter of water somewhere above you. Relief and dread wash through you at once. Relief that the voices have ceased, and dread that you're closer to their source. You shine the torch across the pictographs, spirals, broken chains, and open palm. You kneel, fingertips tracing the grooves. The symbols match those in the ritual chamber where water reflected your distorted face. Symbols, warning or guiding you, can't decide which. Memory flickers there in that hall. The basin's surface had pleaded for recognition. You press thumb into the spiral glyph, and the wall exhales a low resonant hum. The torch trembles in your hand as a hidden panel slides inward with a grinding groan, revealing a narrow niche just big enough for a hand. A rush of stale air escapes, carrying traces of incense and decay. Your heart tugs like a fisherman's line. You lean in wild with anticipatory fear and you plunge your arm into the opening. Fingers brush against cold metal, an iron handle or key. You grip it torch-like, dancing off its flaking surface and slide it free. A glimmer of triumph ignites in your chest. The whispering returns softer now, as though gratified. You stand and hold the strange key before you, turning it over in your palm. It's ornate, twisted into the shape of a coiled serpent that opens its mouth in perpetual hiss. You recall the serpent's eyes at the entrance, carved in obsidian, blinking as you stare. A cold shiver skitters down your spine. You tuck the key into your pack, wrapping it in cloth to muffle its clink against gear. You step out of the alcove, heart pounding so fiercely, you worry it will break free of your ribs. The corridor below is dark still, the torches glow, struggling to penetrate the dense black. You press on each step, hesitant senses alert to the whisper's next key. Drip, drip, drip of water returns a metronome beneath the whispering breath. You swallow and press lip to pencil, keep scrawling a note, found serpent key and whisper niche. You tuck the note alongside the tally record, sealing it in your bag. As you move, the whisper shifts position, trailing inhalation or frustration. You cannot tell which. Sometimes it flutters ahead, then retreats behind walls, so old that the stones are polished smooth. At one juncture, you freeze, hearing the whisper thrice as loud as before. Then a sudden low chuckle that resonates through your bones. You start nearly dropping the torch. A laugh. In the bowels of this temple, the fear floods anew. You press palm to the chilled wall, closing your eyes and reminding yourself of warm breeze of morning light of home. Your pulse slows marginally. You force your shoulders back and inhale, tasting the smoke of your torch and the acrid tang of sweat. You open your eyes and step around a bend, coming face to face with a long corridor lit by phosphorescent veins snaking through the stone. Pale light pulses gently along cracked walls, illuminating concentric glyphs that spiral toward a distant archway. Your torch's flame weakens as you approach, and you feel a magnetic pull toward the archway. The whispering falls silent here, replaced by a low humming vibration that you sense more in your bones than here. You swallow chest tightening. You could reach for the key, now slot it somewhere, see what doors open. Yet a voice in the back of your mind warns you some truths are buried for a reason. You weigh your options, fearful hesitation and desperate hope colliding. Finally, you grip the serpent key hard, thundering, as you step forward beneath the glyph-strewn arch. The humming swells in pale veins and flare bright as though awakened by your presence. Every nerve stands at attention. Then at the arch's center, you see a small keyhole set in smooth stone. Your breath catches. You can either turn away, preserving shreds of safety in the unknown, or insert the key and risk unleashing forces you barely understand. You slide the key from your pack and hold it against the keyhole, fingers trembling. A whisper so soft, it's almost your own thought, unlocked or be undone. You press the serpent's mouth to the stone slot, the key in, and cradle your breath as you prepare to turn it. You turn the serpent key with a deliberate twist, the metal biting into the ancient stone with a satisfying click. A low rumble pulses through your feet as concentric glyphs around the archway glow faintly illuminating the carved designs of lotus pools and coiled serpents, whose eyes once seemed empty, but now gleam with a soft phosphorescence. The arch shudders and slowly swings inward, revealing a massive stone door, slick with moss and carved in relief with skeletal hands reaching skyward. You step forward, torch thrust before you, and press your shoulder against the door's cold surface. It groans like a wounded beast, ancient hinges protesting centuries of rust before swinging open into a wide chamber. Dim light seeps through cracks in the ceiling beams of dusty sun that pierce the darkness like fingers of judgment. Dust motes swirl around you, dancing in the torch's glow, carrying the scent of decayed incense and damp stone. Your boots echo on the floor as you cross the threshold. The chamber is vast, its ceiling lost in shadow, supported by stout pillars carved into the likeness of hooded figures whose hollow faces stare blankly downward. Between the pillars, low altars stand in neat rows, each draped with tattered cloth rotted to fragility. On their surfaces lie offerings, cracked bowls, blackened by long-dead embers, shattered pottery filled with desiccated flowers, and chipped statuettes whose forms flicker in your torchlight. You move between the altars, fingertips trailing across rough stone. The cloth under your palms is brittle, yielding to dust and clouds of air whenever you brush it. On one altar, you find a basin stained with congealed residue, an unhuman communion of ancient oils and ground pigments. Dipping a finger, you smear the thick paste across your thumb. It smells of earth and something sharper like blood dried in the sun. You lick a drop from your finger as a grim test. It tastes of iron and ashes, a reminder that rituals here demanded sacrifice. Further in the walls, covered in glyphs, circle the chamber like a grim mirror. You shine your torch on them, overlapping spirals, radiating suns, interlocking serpents, swallowing their own tails. Between these motifs, rows of tiny figures kneel or bow their hands raised, as though beseeching or pleading. You recognize some of the symbols from the niche, where the whispers emanated the spiral eye, the open palm, the broken chain. Here they seem to document a ceremony, a procession towards some unseen altar, a final plea to return what was stolen. Cold dread seeps into your bones. You recall the whispers commanding you to return what was taken. Was it the key itself, or something more intangible, your own intrusion? The carvings here suggest the temple's guardians demanded tribute before passage. A tithe of blood or memory. You sweep your torch across the floor and discover etched lines leading from each altar toward a dais at the far end of the chamber. Gripping the torch handle, you approach the dais. It's taller than the low altars carved from a single block of granite and topped with a shallow hollow shaped like a palm. Around its base are more glyphs, an unbroken circle, a drowning figure, a serpent's fang. You kneel to inspect the glyphs, closely brushing away dust to reveal faded pigment. The creeping ink of red outlines the drowning figure's lips, frozen in a silent scream. You stand and the torchlight catches movement at the chamber's edge. 4 shadowed statues positioned as guardians. Tall figures cloaked in heavy robes, their eyes set with obsidian stones that gleam in the glow. You remember the idol at the entrance, eyes carved of obsidian staring back at you. These seem like its sentinels, stationed to watch intruders step too close to forbidden power. Your heart hammers, curiosity drives you on. You step around the dais and notice a small altar behind it. Inside rests a stone tablet engraved with a single phrase in the temple's ancient tongue. You press your palm to the tablet fingertips, tracing the deep runes. The script reads, "You think only the giver can pass." You glance at the basin-shaped hollow atop the dais. An icy realization clamps your gut. This is more than a keyhole, it's an offering bowl. You empty your pack onto the floor beside the dais. You couldn't eat a crumpled wrapper, a torn piece of parchment. Nothing here is sacred. You bow your head and scan the empty tin of crackers you scavenged earlier. Brittle shards reduced to dust. Could these be your offering? Desperation simmers as you recall how precious each ration is. If the whispering wants something given back, maybe it demands sustenance life memory. You hesitate, torchlight flickering over the basin's rim. You reach in your pocket and find the scrap of note recording discoveries. You tear a corner free and place it in the bowl, watching it settle with a dull thud. The whispers stir again, soft and expectant. You hold your breath. Nothing happens. You then withdraw the serpent key, its metal cool in your palm. Could that be the stolen object? But the key freed you from the arch. It was your lifeline. Offering it feels like surrendering hope. Your eyes flick to the altar, stalemated in ritual implements. A chipped chalice sits near a jar, capped with faded cloth. Inside, something dark ripples. Tip the jar's edge and sniff. The smell of fermented fruit, wild berries perhaps. Your stomach twists between despair and resolve. You unscrew the jar and pour its contents into the offering bowl, a trickle of dark juice pooling around the parchment. The whispers swell, drifting through the chamber like tendrils of wind. You step back, torch held high. The ground beneath the dais shivers and pillars tremble. From the walls, spots of glowing glyphs bloom bright as though awakened by your offering. A low hum rises, then the obsidian eyes of the guardian statues flare with light, casting long, quivering shadows. Your breath catches. You watch rivulets of ancient juice creep along reveal each step. The glow from the chamber recedes above you, replaced by oppressive darkness tinged with phosphorescent glyphs guiding your descent. You pause at the topmost step torch held aloft and look back at the chamber of dusty altars. It stands silent, empty of its offerings, as though a dream fading at dawn. You take a steadying breath, each inhale sharp with anticipation, each exhale a promise to endure, and then you turn back to the stair, letting the temple's glowing runes guide you deeper into its forgotten bowels. You step onto the first stair, and the world tilts beneath your feet. The staircase spirals upward, but upside down, as though the temple defies all sense of gravity. Each step angles down towards the ceiling, forcing you to lean back, chest open, arms extended for balance. Your torch swings in an arcing arc, illuminating twisted shadows overhead that resemble writhing serpents. You swallow, heart pounding, and grip the torch handle so tightly your knuckles blanch. Your boots scrape along the stone, and every stride feels like climbing a ladder backward. Muscles you didn't know you had protest in rebellion, quads quiver, calves burn, and your lower back arches in protest. You force yourself to focus on a single point above the narrow slit of dim light, marking the staircase's apex. That glow, however faint, is your beacon. As you ascend, dust rains down from fissures in the inverted steps. Tiny pebbles clatter around your feet before plummeting into human emptiness below. You imagine your soul is lost to the temple's design, forever tumbling toward an abyss unseen. You choke back a shudder and press onward, torch held aloft like a guidepost through this disorienting void. The air here is thinner, colder, each breath voices your lungs with sharp clarity. You hear your pulse drumming in your ears, the only sound, besides the soft hiss of your boots sliding. You pause to catch your breath, glance down at your stomach lurches. The floor thickens colder, recedes into blackness so deep, your torch cannot penetrate it. You press a hand against the step beneath your foot, drawing strength from the solid stone. A distant creak echoes above you, as if some colossal door is shifting somewhere in the temple's core. The sound reverberates through the inverted stairwell, making the steps tremble underfoot. Your torchlight trembles too, casting darting beams across carved reliefs hidden in the ceiling stairs. You spot depictions of winged creatures wrestling with immobile priests, a tableau of struggle that mirrors your own. You press on each step a small victory over your trembling body. You remind yourself of the collapse you survived, the whisper niche discovery, the offering that unlocked this path. Each ordeal demanded more than courage. They demanded that you carry the temple's weight on your shoulders and push back when it threatened to crush you. Now the inverted staircase tests whether you can defy its unnatural pull. Your breaths come ragged, fogging the torch's glass, and you wipe it clean on your sleeve. The cloth absorbs sweat and grime, but you can still see. You lift the torch higher, directing its beam toward the carvings above angular figures, straining against serpentine coils. Each relief tells the same story. Those who entered dared to challenge the temple's rules and suffered for it. Their faces twist in agony, eyes wide with the shock of betrayal, stone and tomb. A bead of sweat trickles down the temple, and you swipe it away, only to realize your hand brushes against sticky residue. You shine the torch around patches of dried sap clinging to the steps, as if some ancient balsam oozed from rituals unknown. The sap's golden sheen gleams in the light, an eerie reminder that even here, untouched by sun, the temple bled its offerings. You pause at a landing intersection of inverted corridors. The torch reveals three branching paths, each leading into enveloping blackness. Above you, the light knock at the staircase's end seems no closer. Panic flickers, but you steady. You recall the compass you brought lies useless here. Every sense rebels against this gravity-defying maze. You choose the center path, trusting the faint hum of distant machinery or magic that pulls you over. Feet first, you edge along the ceiling corridor, gripping the inverted wall with one hand and balancing on the narrow lip of stone with your boots. The pressure on your wrists intensifies, and your forearms shake under the strain. You force eyelids open wide, unwilling to lose sight of the path or the trembling glyphs guiding you. Phosphorescent lines trace each step's edge, glowing turquoise and beckoning you onward. A sudden jolt makes your heart stop, the ceiling below quivers, and a low rumble courses through the corridor's backbone. You freeze, torch clutched against your chest. above a loose slab, dislodges and crashes backwards toward the unseen abyss beneath you. You almost lose your footing legs, flailing, until your hand scrapes along a carved notch, catching your weight. You gasp, heart racing, and press your back against the inverted wall for stability. You force your body upward in jerky increments, each movement a battle of will against gravity and self-doubt. Your legs tremble and sweat stings your eyes, but you climb inch by medical, refusing to slip. Sweat pools at the base of your skull and trickles down your back, soaking your shirt. Yet each bead that falls feels like proof you're alive. Halfway up, you spot a fissure in the step above a hairline crack running along the inverted arch. You pry its edge with a fingertip, expanding just enough to fit the tip of the circle key in the tree. Your breath catches if some ancient mechanism works. Maybe the key will trigger it to steady the staircase, or even right its course. You wedge the key's curved end into the crack and twist gently. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. You brace torch clamped between shoulder and cheek. Then deep within the stone, a mechanical click resounds, sending ripples through the steps. The phosphorescent glyphs along the rail flicker, and you feel the corridor shudder as though breathing. The inverted steps shift imperceptibly, realigning by millimeters. You sense the pull reduce. Your footing steadies. A low sigh echoes through the passage like a temple whispering relief. You test the next step, and to your amazement, it holds firm under weight that moments ago would have slid you backward. You nod, adrenaline surging as resolve hardens in your chest. You've claimed this path, shaping the temple's very architecture to your will. Emboldened, you push upward with renewed vigor. The hum grows louder as you ascend, morphing from rumble to mechanical whir. Above you, light seeps through widening cracks in the inverted ceiling, the staircase's true floor casting a pale glow that warms your skin. You wipe your brow and tighten your grip on the torch muscles, coiling for the final push. At last, you reach the topmost step. The world rights itself in a single instant. You cross the threshold and find yourself standing on a stone landing, carved into the temple's core. The inverted stairs have disappeared behind a sealed portal, now locked in place. Your chest heaves as you solidify your footing on solid ground, torch held high. You look back at the sealed arch heart, fluttering with triumph. You scale the staircase, meant to disorient and deter, then tame its ancient mechanism with nothing but a stolen key and sheer will. Your legs tremble, but the ache feels like victory's echo. Ahead, a broad corridor stretches into darkness, its walls lined with faded frescoes of triumphant processions, figures ascending toward the sky torches aloft. They mirror you now, an unspoken testament to endurance and defiance. You press onward, torches glow, marking your path forward, each step echoing through the temple's hushed halls. The inverted staircase is behind you, a conundrum conquered. You feel its legacy in your blood and bones, driving your heart proof that no design, no ancient trap can bind the will of one determined to survive. You step from the inverted staircase into a long corridor, where torchlight skims over dust-laden frescoes and bowed figures presenting offerings. The air is cool, scented with dry stone and faint traces of incense. Your shoulders ache from the climb, but a surge of pride steadies your legs. You advance, torch held close eyes, scanning every element and carving the clues. Survivors habit now turning fear into vigilance. Midway down the corridor, you spot a recess in the wall, narrow shadow almost overlooked. You approach and realize it houses a shattered statue, its marble limbs strewn across the floor like discarded offerings. The torso remains upright, headless, and half buried in the fallen stone. Moss and lichen creep over its shoulders, staining the white surface a sickly green. You crouch, chest pounding, and trace the statue's smooth curves, fingertips brushing centuries-old dust. You circle the remains, noting every detail. The statue's hands were once clasped around an object now missing. Its robes, carved with intricate lotus patterns, look worn as if worshippers' palms smoothed them with devotion. You kneel and sweep aside loose shards of marble, revealing more fragments of a pedestal carved with coiling serpents and dripping chalices. Beneath these lies a small cavity between the statue's torso and the base, a shallow niche. Heart thundering, you lean in torch, illuminating the hollow. Inside an object glints a tarnished metal key, its surface mottled with verdigris, but still unmistakably shaped for ancient rocks. You lift it gently heavy and warm with possibility. You remember the locked doors you passed, especially the one half buried under rubble you couldn't open. This key might free a new path, or even your escape. As you lift the key, the corridor seems to exhale around you. A soft crack resonates as the statue settles, sending a fine cloud of dust into the torch's glow. Cough, torch raised to shield your face, and dust falls like dry rain. When your vision clears, you notice the statue's empty eye sockets carved into its torso, as though its gaze follows you from within the wall. A chill brushes your spine, and you tuck the key into your pack, wrapping it in cloth to muffle its metallic whisper. You rise and shine the torch across the corridor in both directions. To the left, frescoes depict supplicants offering fruit and feathers. To the right, glyph-carved doors sit sealed in place. One in particular catches your eye, a low half-buried doorway you passed earlier, but dismissed thinking it too narrow. Now, with key in hand, you retrace your steps toward it, every sense humming with anticipation. The corridor narrows as you near the door. Your torchlight dances over its surface, a carved serpent tugging a chained hand, a cracked hourglass. The door is only waist-high, too small for a person, yet its frame suggests something significant lies beyond. You crouch and brush away layers of dust and cobwebs from the keyhole. Faint glyphs above it read, "He who retrieves must return." You pause, recalling your offerings at the dais and the whispers that guided you. Perhaps this key demands a final exchange. You press a fingertip to the serpent's winding body, carved on the door, feeling its cold, rough edges. You slide the tarnished key into the slot. It fits snugly, metal scraping lightly against stone. With deliberate torque, you turn the key and the door shudders. A deep grinding echoes through the corridor as hidden mechanisms awaken. You step back, torch clutched before you, and feel vibrations beneath your boots. The door yields, swinging inward on unseen hinges. You glimpse darkness beyond a cramped chamber, no more than the size of a shallow shelf. You step through the threshold torch, angled to reveal stone walls carved with scenes of burial and renewal. Hands placing objects into the earth, seedlings sprouting in cracked urns. The air here is stale, thick with dust, and you cough again as motes swirl in the torch's beam. Your boots stir dry leaves and little debris on the floor. You survey the space, low dais at its center holds a shallow basin. Around it lie remnants of sacrificial offerings, bone chips, dried petals, a small obsidian bowl cracked in two. The basin's rim is encrusted with crystalline residue salt, perhaps left by evaporated liquid. You step forward, heart pounding, drawn by both dread and hope. You crouch and shine your torch into the basin. A puddle of dark residue clings to its floor, reflecting your torchlight like dirty glass. Press gloved fingertips into the residue. It flakes away, revealing a carved indentation, a recessed shape matching the serpent key's head. Your pulse stamps. Whatever lies beyond requires another sacrifice or payment. You stand torch held high and inspect the basin's rim. Carved glyphs swirl around it, fill the living hole. You inhale, recalling the meager rations you gleaned from scavenged packs and your own supplies. Could it once sacrifice the sustenance again? Hunger gnaws at you, but this moment demands choice, sacrifice everything, and risk starvation, or leave the key unused and remain trapped. You reach into your pack and retrieve the torn scrap of parchment you offered at the dais, water-stained but intact. You hesitate, finger hovering above the basin. The whispers you first heard now echo in your mind, return what was taken. You grasp the scrap and drop it into the basin. It lands with a muted plop. The basin shudders as though swallowing the offering. Stillness returns. Your heart pounds in your ears as you wait for a response. At last, a low hum resonates, and the crystalline residue around the basin's floor glows faintly. The obsidian bowl cracks further, as if enchanted, and the dry petals around it stir without wind. You press a palm to your chest, feeling each beat as proof you're alive. Then, with a soft click, the basin's floor slides aside, like a trapdoor revealing a narrow cavity. Inside rests a second key, smaller wrought in bronze, and carved into the shape of an open palm. Frosty mist seeps from the chamber beneath, curling around your boots and scaled tendrils. You reach in and lift the bronze key, the surface cold to your touch. Relief floods the two keys, might open two doors, and maybe one might turn. You tuck the bronze key into your pack, invisible. 5 clustered, 5 clustered, 5 clustered. Another reference to time's passage and those who came before. You straighten torch, shaking in your grip, and draw a deep breath. You found 2 keys, survived gravity's defiance, offered scraps of hope, and uncovered hidden passages. Each step has been a testament to your will to live. Now lies a choice: proceed into the unknown tunnel or retrace your steps to tally the mysteries you've already unraveled. You lift the torch higher, resolve hardening. Hunger and exhaustion press at your mind, but you remind yourself that survival demands risk. You kneel once more, slide the serpent key back into your hand and place it next to the palm key for balance. You tuck both into your pack, securing them beneath your ration belt. Then, torch held aloft, you step toward the low tunnel body, coiling for the descent into deeper darkness. The corridor behind you stands silent guardians of broken marble and mouldering offerings fading from sight. Ahead, the ramp beckons, lit by phosphorescent glyphs and echoing with distant drip, drip, drip like a heartbeat. You exhale, torchlight flickering over the ramp's curve and descend into the forgotten depths once more, trusting that these keys will unlock your passage home. You crouch at the entrance to the low tunnel torchlight, casting long shadows along the damp ramp as you steel yourself for what lies beyond. Hunger gnaws at your gut, exhaustion pulls at your bones, but the promise of fresh air and perhaps your escape drives you onward. You tuck the 2 keys safely against your side strap, the tin of crackers and your energy bars within easy reach, and begin your descent. The tunnel curves sharply downward, forcing you to stoop as you shuffle forward. Your boots splash through shallow puddles that glint in the torch's glow each step, sending ripples across the smooth stone. A faint breeze brushes past, carrying a tang of moisture, and something else, an undercurrent of warmth, like wind from the dawn. You lean forward, torch angled to illuminate the path, and hear it again, the soft susurrus at the edge of perception, almost like a misty light. You freeze, heart hammering. Your mind conjures memories at the fringes, snatches of home that feel both comforting and distant. The scent of rain on pavement, your favorite mug cradled between cold fingers, laughter shared with friends. They flicker and dissolve, replaced by uneasy visions, a face you can't quite recall, eyes pleading, a hand reaching through darkness to grasp yours. The tunnel's walls seem to breathe, pulsing with each of your heartbeats, and you wonder if you're losing yourself to the temple's hunger. You shake your head, blinking away the mirage. This is your mind playing tricks, your fears given shape in the dim glow. You remind yourself, keep moving, stay alert. You press on torch, held high, measuring each step against the rhythm of drip, drip, drip that echoes somewhere deep below. The ramp steepens, and you grip the carved handhold along one wall, a series of indentations carved for this very purpose. Your fingers slip on slick stone, and you curse softly as cold water beads along your palm. Suddenly, a glimmer catches your eye at the edge of the torch's beam. You pivot, heart leaping, and catch sight of a dark pool nestled against the wall, its surface unnaturally still. You kneel and shine the torch directly into the water, expecting murky depths, but instead, your reflection stares back. Pale and full-eyed, wide with fear, and behind you a flicker of movement that vanishes when you look. Jerk upright, spinning your torch around, only to find the tunnel empty, save for dripping water in the shadows. A bead of sweat snakes down your spine. You clear your throat and force a wry laugh into the echoing chamber. Get a grip and whisper to your reflection in the water before standing and pressing forward. Yet your chest tightens as you walk away, the image of your hollow eyes burns into your mind. You swallow torchlight dancing along the damp walls and remind yourself illusions can be weapons here. The ramp levels out into a small cavern. You step inside torch, illuminating its rough-hewn walls, streaked with mineral deposits that shimmer like veins of silver. In the center, a shallow pool mirrors the phosphorescent glyphs that run along the ceiling, creating the illusion of stars in the subterranean sky. You exhale, struck by beauty and disorientation in equal measure. It's impossible to tell what's real and what's conjured by fear, but you know that standing here too long invites more hallucinations. You resist the urge to peer into the pool again, and instead sweep the torch across the cavern's perimeter. At one end, a narrow stair of roughly hewn steps ascends toward a faint glow. That must be the next passage. At the other, a dark niche yawns a side alcove you hadn't noticed until now. The The alcove holds a stone bench carved directly from the cavern wall and etched with a sequence of glyphs, a winding path, a closed eye, an open heart. Your stomach tightens at their familiarity, twisted versions of the temple's promises. Your mind quivers between exhaustion and caution. Part of you yearns to rest, to sit on that bench and close your eyes before slumping into sleep. But you remember the fate of those before you, tally marks scratched into niches' bodies, never found echoes that outlast any mortal body. You force yourself to step past the bench torch, held at arm's length. The alcove's darkness seems to pulse in response, as though breathing with its own life. You climb the stairs, each footfall echoing off the cavern walls. The steps narrow near the top, and you have to press your shoulders against the walls for balance. Your ribcage protests each breath sharper than the last, but you push on. The glow above steadies into a soft golden radiance, and you emerge into a small antechamber lit by a single shaft of pale light, lightly filtering down from the crack in the temple's outer wall. You step into the light, and for an instant, the world tilts back into comforting familiarity. You see walls lined with faded frescoes of yawn trees in bloom, their branches heavy with fruit. The scene stirs warm memories of summer afternoons, picking berries, laughter echoing in orchards, the sun painting golden patterns on the ground. You close your eyes, letting the memories wash over you like balm, and you feel the ache in your chest soften. The ache of hunger, of exhaustion, of lingering fear. It all fades for a heartbeat in these gentle recollections. Then a distant echo shatters the peace. A low groan like stone grinding against stone, or perhaps the temple's own shifting bones. You jog upright, heart racing again, as the sunny vision dissolves into torchlight shadows. The bench behind you is empty. There's no safe place here. You press a finger to your wrist, drawing a drop of blood from a fresh graze, and taste its sharp iron. Blood always feels real, you think. Always reminds you you're alive. Determined not to linger, you step away from the antechamber and into a narrow tunnel beyond. The walls here bear inscriptions too weathered to read, but you trace them anyway, fingertips brushing worn glyphs as reassurance. Each symbol feels like a legacy of those who passed this way, some triumphant, others defeated. You pause at one etching of a figure, kneeling beside a bowl of water, its hands cupped in prayer. You recall the whispering niche, a ritual basin, the offerings you made. The temple demands tribute, and memory may be the final price. Your foot slips on a slick patch of moss, and you stagger, torch jerking. The wall behind you ripples in its light, and you swear you glimpse a face carved into stone lips moving. You spin around, only to find a blank wall. The corridor hungrily stretches ahead, narrowing to a barely perceptible crack of silver, far and wide. You swallow grip, tightening on the torch, and move forward. Step by trembling step, you move deeper into the corridor, hunger's roar muting for the need to survive. Each footfall carries you past the last ripple of memory, and closer to whatever waits beyond this ancient mirror of stone. You force yourself not to look back, not to plunge into the pool. The reflection of your mind is tempting, offering a momentary escape, but it's a trap. You need reality, no matter how hard. The tunnel's end opens into a broad gallery, its floor engraved with a mosaic of serpents forming a ring. At the center lies a circular depression, counterpart to the ritual holes you encountered. Around it, the air is still charged with the faint hum you heard before. You step into the center of the room, which held high, and feel the temple's silent breath gather behind you. Your reflection in the mosaic's polished stones looks back hollow-eyed, gaunt, determined. You touch your chest, feeling the steady thump of your heart, the faint scar where you wiped blood earlier. You realize the ordeal has stripped you bare body and mind, laid open to the temple's designs. But you've endured every test of stone, every whisper of the walls, every tremor of the earth. You square your shoulders and raise the torch overhead, letting flickering light dance across the serpent ring. This gallery feels like a crossroads of memory and reality, sacrifice and escape. You glance down at the bronze palm key and the serpent key in your pack. Both keys together unlock gates and paths. Now they await their final use. You take a deep breath, grounding yourself in the present. Ahead, a massive door carved with entwined serpents and open palms looms a deathly twin at the entrance gate you first passed. Its slab surface bears no keyhole, but the basin's depression at its center suggests the final offering must be made here. You step toward it, torchlight illuminating the glyph. Give yourself to see the world anew. You swallow hard, aware that this might demand your most personal sacrifice, memory, fear, or perhaps the final shred of your former self. But you steel your mind. You've come too far to falter now. You will face whatever the temple demands, because beyond that door lies sunlight, fresh air, and home. You step forward, torches glow, mingling with the gallery's phosphorescent hum, ready to end the temple's trials and reclaim yourself from the shadows. You step into the gallery's cool, high torchlight, flickering across serpent stains and the massive door that seals your path. Hunger roars through every pang, a sharp reminder of the dens trapped beneath the stones. You press a hand against your midriff, feeling emptiness spread like an ache in your bones. The last of your crackers and half an energy bar have been your lifeline since the collapse. Now you stand before the temple's final test on nothing more than crumbs in your mouth. Your tongue feels thick and dry. Each swallow scrapes like sandpaper. You cradle the tin in your palm, its metal cold against your skin, and count the crumbs one more time. Four shards of brittle bread hanging on by a promise of strength. You tuck the tin back into your sack, resolve hardening your jaw. There's no turning back, no rest until you pass through that door or succumb to starvation's silent burn. You grip the torch tighter and scan the chamber. The door's surface is carved with two serpents forming an endless coil mouths meeting at the center where a shallow basin awaits its final offering. Around you, phosphorescent glyphs pulse softly as if urging you onward. You recall the whisper you first heard, return what was taken and the sacrifices you've made. Parchment scraps, berry juice keys of twisted metal. Now the temple demands its ultimate time. Every sound seems amplified in the stillness. Drip, drip, drip of water seeping through cracks overhead, the distant groan of shifting stone. Even the soft rasp of your own breathing. Hunger heightens every sense, stretching each second into eternity. You can almost taste the damp air, feel your stomach rumble in protest. One shard of cracker can quell the ache of a heartbeat, but what use is a moment's relief if the door remains sealed? You kneel before the basin torch, braced at arm's length, and peer inside. The stone bowl is unfathomably deep, its walls are slick and cold. A single raven feather lies at the bottom, likely a remnant of past offerings. You reach in with trembling fingers and pluck it through. Its barbs are brittle, scattering down to the basin's floor in soft echoing whispers. You hold the feather before you, watching it crumble under your thumb. Dust drifts off like snow. A sudden whisper coils through your mind. Give what you are. You gasp, heart hammering, as the world tilts on starvation's starved legs. Give what you are. Your memories, your flesh, your fear. You stare at the crumbling feather and feel a wave of vertigo. Hunger makes every sensation raw, every thought sharper and closer to the edge of reason. You rise torch held above your head and study the serpent's carved coils. Their eyes, tiny obsidian inlays, glint and glow. You imagine them alive, watching you weigh your final offering. The temple has swallowed everything else. What remains of you could satisfy its ancient hunger. You press your forehead to cool stone breath hitching. You taste stale sweat on your lips and realize how near you stand to surrender. But surrender is not in your nature. You lift your head and force your thoughts toward home. Dawn's first light laughter in sunlit streets, the comforting weight of a blanket on your shoulders. Those memories are as real as the hunger tearing at your gut. You kneel once more and remove the last cracker shards from their tin, placing them carefully in the basin. 4 small pieces, jagged and fragile, but each a fragment of your world outside. The whispers swirl soft and approving as the shards settle. You place the stub of an energy bar atop them, its glossy wrapper crunching softly against stone. Hunger flares anew at the thought of yielding your final stores of energy. Your vision blurs, but you press your palm to the basin's rim and speak aloud, "I offer all that sustains me." Your voice echoes bold yet trembling. Silence reigns for a moment longer than feels possible. Then a low hum stirs beneath the stone. The basin's floor vibrates and dust drifts upward in slow spirals. The serpents on the door coil tighter with their scales undulating as though alive. stumble forward, boots sliding on polished stone, until the tunnel opens onto a rocky slope where sunlight streams in slanted beams. You shield your eyes, heart pounding like a drum. Golden dust motes dance in the light as if celebrating your passage. You move into the sunshine torch flame, guttering as fresh air floods your lungs. The world crackles with life, a distant bird call, wind rustling leaves the warmth of day on your face. You close your eyes against tears, feeling every muscle relax, every ache dull in the embrace of freedom. Staggering steps carry you away from the temple's mouth, a jagged arch of stone, half swallowed by earth and vines. You turn back once torch clutched at your side and gaze at the mouth of darkness that tested your will. Gratitude and relief wash through you. The temple stands silent, its trials complete. You sink to your knees on sun-warmed ground, chest heaving, skin prickling with evidence of life regained. You reach into your pack, feel the bronze palm key and serpent key nestle against your side, tokens of passage and sacrifice. You smile through cracked lips, hunger's ache replaced by triumphant hunger for breakfast and warmth. You stand dusting off your clothes and look beyond the bright expanse of sky trees, swaying in a gentle breeze, the promise of home calling across open land. You draw a deep, ragged breath, tasting the sweetness of fresh air. You step forward into the day, leaving the temple's silent only behind. You step beyond the temple's gaping mouth in the blinding sunlight, but instinct tugs you back. There's more the temple demands before it releases your food. You pause at the threshold and shine your torch into the dark archway one last time, half expecting a glare of glyphs or another hidden passage. Instead, water drips from the lintel, and the wind carries faint echoes of stone, grinding far below. Something in that sound pulls you back inside. You rub grit from your eyes and hoist yourself up onto the ledge. The narrow corridor beckons its entrance, half concealed by hanging vines and fractured carvings. You push the foliage aside and slip back into the hush of ancient halls. Your skin prickles in the sudden chill. Outside was freedom. In here, the temple's heartbeat thrums once more. You step forward, torch raised, and the arch closes behind you with a soft click. No gate, no barrier, just the silence settling like dust. The corridor slopes gently downward, slick with moss and dripping water. You tread carefully, the torchlight revealing streaks of iridescent mineral coating the walls. The hum you heard from the gallery returns, resonating through the stone beneath your feet. Each step magnifies the vibration, a low purr that crescendos into a mechanical groan. You pause at a fork in the passage, marked by two carved pillars shaped like coiled serpents. Between them is a polished stone plinth, inset with a narrow slot like a keyhole, but too wide for any key you carry. You crouch to inspect it, brushing away centuries of grime with a gloved fingertip. The slot's edges are worn smooth by something sliding in and out, no doubt a lever of some kind. You look up and see a faint glimmer, an iron lever protruding from the wall above the plinth, its shaft coiled like a serpent's tail before disappearing into the stone. Dust and cobwebs cling to it, and faint rust stains stain the wall around its base. Your pulse quickens. This must be one of the temple's mechanisms, one of the ancient devices that once moved blocks and opened doors. You recall the groaning you heard beneath the sunlight's edge, the low click when you stepped inside. Perhaps triggering this lever will awaken these mechanisms again, revealing a hidden path or a shortcut out. But you also remember how the corridor collapsed, or how stone can easily crush as much as conceal. You weigh the risk. Hunger still roars with the bright day's air, restored some strength. Your ribs ache from the crawl through low tunnels, your shoulders still burn from the inverted staircase. But curiosity tempered by survival instinct leads out. You grip the lever's handle cold and flaky, brace your feet against the opposing walls. Your breathing steadies as you inhale the musty air taste, iron and dust on your tongue, and prepare to pull. You lean back and tug. The lever groans under centuries of disuse, protest echoing down corridors like a giant stirring in its slumber. Your arms strain as the lever tips toward the floor, and a deep rattling begins in the stone far below. You hold fast, the handle slick against your palms. With a final heave, you yank the lever free, and a sharp click resonates as it locks into place. Silence follows palpable ringing in your ears before the temple answers. Deep beneath your boots, a grinding groan rises as hidden gears engage. You drop the torch onto the floor, landing on its tip so the flame dances across the walls, and press both hands flat against the stone. The corridor quakes as massive blocks shift somewhere ahead, sliding along grooved tracks hidden in ancient masonry. The vibration pulses through your limbs, and you feel the temple breathing beneath your touch. You scramble back to your torch heart, pounding as dust falls from overhead. You knock the handle to revive the flame, its glow steady but small against the cavernous hush. Ahead, you hear slabs of stone scraping, then a dull thud as something heavy settles into place. The corridor's slope flattens, and you notice a faint line in the floor, an outline of a rectangular slab that wasn't there before. It's a door, or perhaps the cover of a pit that's shifted aside. With slow, deliberate steps, you approach the slab's edge. You shine your torch down into the gap, and see metal rails and a yawning void beneath an elevator shaft, or a lift platform, long since neglected. You crouch and trace the rails with a trembling finger, their oil and smooth, as though maintained until recent. Your pulse races if you can activate this lift. It might carry you swiftly up through the temple's core, bypassing dozens of traps and dead ends. Your mind flashes to a series of levers and pulleys in that collapsed corridor. Maybe this system leads to them. Maybe you can rewire your schedule. You stand and dust yourself off, then turn and retrace your steps to the lift. The slot beneath the lever must connect to a lock that holds the slab in place. You retrieve the bronze palm key from your pack, its ridged surface comforting in your hand. The slot looks a bit wide, but the key's flat head might slip in. You lean over, slot the bronze key's head into the plinth's groove and twist. It fits perfectly, teeth catching in the mechanism. You hear clicks from within the stone as tumblers engage. A second grinding begins harmonizing with the distant gearwork. The slab underfoot thunders as it slides sideways, revealing the lift platform's gaping maw. You step back, breath quickening, and scan the corridor walls for control levers, another in the mechanism chain. Beside the plinth is a small alcove holding two notched bars protruding horizontally. You press one inward. The sound of metal engaging reaches deep beneath your feet, and the lift platform creaks upward. You switch to the other bar, and the platform tilts its surface, rising against the shaft's rails. Dust and stale air swirl as the platform edges flush with the corridor floor. You bristle at the sudden drop in temperature and the hiss of damp air pouring from the shaft below. You crouch for balance as the platform settles, then rise and step onto its metal surface. The lift's edges are framed in carved stone, decorated with spirals and palm motifs, matching those you see in the whisper niche of the offerings. Your boots scrape metal as you shift forward. You locate a lever from the platform's side, a heavy iron rod set into polished stone, bearing a single glyph and a red bar. You grip it with both hands, the metal cold against your skin and pull down. Gears glide as the platform descends, carrying rattling against rails. The torchlight stutters across damp walls, lined with water-streaked frescoes, processions marching upward, figures ascending toward a bright sun carved in the roof. You descend slowly every inch, an echo of the temple's ancient rituals. The rumble grows deeper until it feels like you're traveling through the earth's belly. Your chest tightens ribs, protesting each jolt as you grit your teeth to keep the torch steady. The platform shudders, then past a certain depth, the gearwork smooths. You remember the collapsed corridor and the inverted staircase. This ride feels almost like a reward, a shift from brute survival to mechanical wonder. At last, the platform stops with a gentle thud. You release the lever, and the mechanism clicks into place. You lean over the edge and peer into the adjoining chamber, a vaulted hall illuminated by fractured daylight through cracks overhead. Moss and vines spill in, painting the walls with green shadows. In the center stands a massive stone door etched with swirling suns and twin serpents, your likely exit from this subterranean maze. You step off the platform and inspect the door. No visible keyhole greets you. Instead, a circular depression, like those offering basins, occupies its center. You kneel and set your torch aside, then remove the last shards of cracker from your pack. Hunger flares as you gather your remaining energy bars. This final offering might be crucial. You You recall the whisper, return what was taken. So far you've returned scraps of yourself, keys, parchment juice. Now the temple demands sustenance, life's currency. Your hands shake as you break an energy bar into 4 equal pieces, letting each drop into the stone depression. The platform beneath you vibrates as though humming its approval. You step back, torch in hand, and watch dust stir from the glyphs around the door. A gentle roar fills the chamber with distant thunder, and vines along the walls quiver. Then in a single motion, the door's stone panels split along fine seams and swing open with hidden pillars. You gasp as sunlight and a fresh breeze spills in, carrying the scent of wildflowers and open sky. Freedom stands just beyond the threshold, an invitation after 100 hours of darkness. You step through the archway into a courtyard, reclaimed by jungle vines curl around broken columns, orchids bloom in sunlit cracks, and distant birdsong fills the air. You look back once at the mechanism near the corridor, grateful and broad. The temple has surrendered its secrets and its power to you. You lean against a mossy pillar torch, extinguished in your pocket, and close your eyes. The earth hums around you, a heartbeat of a world that welcomes you back. You draw a deep breath of jungle air, feeling every ache subside in daylight's embrace. You smile, chest flooding with relief and triumph. Above you, clouds drift across the open sky, and the temple's stone silhouette recedes behind lush greenery. You push off the pillar, shoulders squared, and step into the courtyard with deliberate strides, each marked by the promise that you survived and outwitted the ancient heart of stone. You step out into the jungle-wrapped courtyard, boots sinking in soft, loamy soil, scattered with fallen leaves. Vines crawl over toppled pillars, orchids bloom in crevices, and shafts of sunlight leak through a canopy you last saw only in dreams. You breathe deep, tasting the tang of moss and flowering vines, and it's real. The temple's final gate stands open behind you, its heavy doors swung wide by your offerings at will. But freedom here feels fragile, as though a wrong step might tumble you back into shadow. The courtyard stretches before you in dappled light, a labyrinth of broken stone and overgrown paths. You note 3 routes, a vine-clad stair winding upward along a crumbling buttress, a narrow path sloping down toward a pool of clear water, and a tangle of roots leading through dense underground. Your lungs tighten at the thought of each journey. Which path leads back to civilization? Which carries fresh peril? Hunger still twists in your gut, and exhaustion weighs your limbs like anchored chains. You press on with torch, now stashed in your hand, trusting your senses. Choose the root-strewn route first, wary of slipping into slip stones near the pool. Thick roots arch overhead, forming a green tunnel that pulses with life. You push through ferns and yawns, boots brushing dew-laden leaves. Every rustle hints at hidden wildlife, crickets, frogs, baby snakes, and you move carefully, eyes sharp. The tunnel opens to a shaded glade where sunlight flickers through gaps in the canopy, revealing a small spring bubbling from a stone carved in the shape of a lotus. Water spills into a shallow basin before trickling away along carved channels. The basin is clear as glass, and you kneel to cup your hands, drinking deeply. The water is cool and sweet, a balm to parched throat and belly. You drink until your ribs protest, then press your forehead against the rim, savoring its gift. As you rise, you notice fresh footprints in the damp earth beside the spring, small, human, possibly recent. Your pulse quickens, you may not be alone out here. You follow the footprints, torchlight forgotten, relying on sunlight and your own blood-warmed instincts. The prints lead downward along a sloping path where the jungle floor gives way to moss-covered cobbles. You catch glimpses of sky through breaks in the foliage and hear the distant call of birds. Then ahead, you see a figure perched on a stone wall, a local hunter or explorer crossbow, resting across broad shoulders, watching you with curious eyes. You freeze, heart hammering. The hunter's companion, a reddish-brown dog, barks softly, its tail wagging in welcome. You swallow, voice hoarse, help. I've been trapped in there. Your words come out ragged disbelief, mingling with relief. The hunter stands and steps down from the wall, approaching slowly with open arms. You've done it, he says in broken English, smiled gently. You survive the temple of whispers. You lower yourself to the ground, relief flooding your limbs as tears sting your eyes. The hunter kneels, offering a water skin and energy bar fresh from him. You take them, hands shaking, and drink and chew gratefully. You need rest. You take his hand, rising with effort. Your muscles protest. The offer feels like promise. Together you leave the spring behind and follow a warm path leading out of the courtyard. Sunlight guides you to the temple's looming silhouette, receding into vines and stone. Every breath of fresh air tastes sweeter. Every bird call a hymn of liberation. As you walk, you reflect on the temple's ordeals, crushing corridors, whispering walls, inverted staircases, hidden keys, sacrificial bases, and mechanical marvels. Each trial tested your body, mind, and spirit. Hunger sharpened your focus, fear honed your senses. Offerings cost you scraps of sustenance, yet freed new passages. At last you learned that survival here demanded not brute force, but humility and respect for ancient forces. The path emerges onto a village clearing where wooden huts cluster around a central fire pit. Villagers pause in tasks, weaving baskets, tending charcoal kilns, brewing tea to stare at your dusty, blood-smeared form. Children gape, women whisper prayers, and men step aside reverently. You realize the temple is sacred here, feared and revered. The hunter guides you to a rough bench beside the fire, where warm tea is poured into a cracked ceramic cup. You cradle the cup, feeling its warmth seep through cold fingers. You sip, and the tea's bitterness staves off nausea, bringing clarity. Your stomach rumbles at the memory of the final cracker and energy bar, but you push away pangs of lingering hunger. You have enough now, and stories too heavy to share in a single breath. An elder approaches, staff in hand, and eyes like carved jade. She studies your expression, unreadable, then nods once. You have walked the temple's path and returned, she says softly in her language. You bear its mark. She places a soft band around your wrist, a simple weave of vines and leaves, symbol of passage and promise of healing. You bow your head, gratitude swelling. Relief and pride intertwine as you realize you are no longer alone. You are embraced by a community that reveals your survival. Daylight deepens into golden afternoon. You rest by the fire hands, wrapped around your tea-dog curl at your feet. Smoke drifts up through an opening in the thatched roof overhead. Laughter drifts from huts as people resume their tasks. You feel the ache in your ribs and shoulders, but it no longer binds you. Pain is memory, a testament to endurance. You know tomorrow you will walk beyond this village, return to roads and cities, drink coffee in cafes, feel traffic's roar, all mundane luxuries you once took for granted. But here in the jungle's embrace, you carry the temple's whispers in your bones, reminders of fragility, resilience, and the price of trespass. You will honor them, keeping the keys, the parchments, and the stars as tokens of humility and victory. You lift your cup in a silent toast to survival, to the temple that tested you, and to the living world that welcomed you home. A final rumble echoes. It could be thunder, or the temple's heart still stirring, but you are far from its hungry walls now. You smile at the elder, at the hunter, at the dog, and let the warmth of community wash over you. The sun dips low, painting the courtyard's broken stones gold. You sip your tea warm and steadfast, and for the first time in 100 hours, you feel fully alive. You stand before the ancient archway once more, torch sputtering in your grip as the final lock gapes like a cavernous mouth. The vines that draped across this portal have been pushed aside, revealing an elaborate relief. Two serpents entwined around a keyhole the size of your palm, mouths agape in perpetual hiss. Your heart hammers. This is the lock you sensed buried deep within the temple's core, the last barrier between you and freedom. Hunger gnaws at your belly, exhaustion weighs on every limb, and your torch flickers dangerously low. Still, you clutch the bronze palm key and serpent key in one shaking hand, and you know there's no turning back now. The air here is oppressively still, as though the temple itself holds its breath. Dust motes swirl in the torch's weak beam, drifting across carved glyphs of drowning figures and spiraling glyphs you've seen in every trial. You kneel on the cold stone floor and brush away centuries of grit from the keyhole. Your palms sweat and your pulse thunders with anticipation and dread. You bodies ripple as if alive. Their stone scales cascade in a silent wave toward the keyhole above. A second click sounds as the upper slot yawns, ready for the serpent key. You swallow torchlight dancing across slick walls. Your hand trembles as you withdraw the serpent key from your pack. Its coiled metal design mouth poised to strike feels selfishly precious after all you've endured. Still, this is the moment you stole when you first pried it from the shattered statue. You insert its fanged end into the upper keyhole metal, scraping against stone until it clicks into place. The relief serpents seem to tighten around the key, and dust falls like dry rain as the entire archway hums with awakening energy. The torch gutters its flame, flickering, as if startled by the power surging through the lock. With the two keys turned the serpents apart in a slow, deliberate motion. Stone slabs grind against each other, and a low vibration pulses through your feet. You step back instinctively, torch held high as the archway's monolithic doors begin to slide open on hidden pivots. A gust of stale air bursts forth, carrying the sense of mold, incense residue, and distant lightning freshness you haven't felt in days. Halfway through the grinding stops. Doors hang suspended etched glyphs, frozen mid-reveal. Your breath catches as you realize the temple offers only a narrow gap wide enough for one person before the mechanism stalls you. The keys remain locked in place, binding you to the portal. You jump forward, pressing your shoulder to one door, but it resists. Hunger and fatigue surge if you hesitate. The mechanism might retract, sealing the wall forever. Your torch sputters to half its brightness, and you glimpse your gaunt reflection in the darkened stone. You wipe sweat and grime from your brow, tasting iron and dust on your tongue. Every instinct screams that this is the moment of truth. Step through, or remain part of the temple's hungry inside. You steel yourself, inhaling the stale air, like a vow, and shove against the door with everything you have. The temple shudders in response, an angry groan of stone from here. You plant your feet firmly, boots skidding on scattered debris, and heave again. A crack echoes as the mechanism yields, doors rattling free. Light from beyond spills in, drawing a pale line across the dust-filled threshold. You feel warmth pressing against your chest like a hand guiding you forward. Exhaustion rattles through your limbs, but adrenaline surges. You push your body through the narrow opening, one shoulder scraping moss and vine. Your pack catches briefly on carved flourishes, and you wrench it free with a grunt. The torch tips, spilling sparks onto ancient stones, but you right it and keep moving. Behind you, the doors swing shut with a thunderous finality, sealing off the temple's heart from its outer halls forever. You emerge into a twilight chamber that bridges inside and outside a transitional space carved from the living rock. Its walls lined with niches holding faded offerings. The air here is cooler, tinged with fresh breeze from cracks above. You press both hands against the far wall, feeling its rough surface and the hum of the world beyond. You lean your forehead against the stone chest, heaving, grateful for every scar and scratch that brought you here. Your torch's flame wavers again, flicking between life and death. You cup it in one hand, blow gently to keep it alive, and guide your steps toward a narrow slit in the far wall where sunlight spills through. Each step feels unsteady muscles, protecting vision swimming with grains of dust and exhaustion. Hunger roars with renewed fervor, the promise of outside air steadies you. As you near the slit, the light grows stronger, bathing you in soft gold. You reach the threshold and pause, torch held aloft, body trembling with release and fear. Beyond leafy branches sway in a gentle wind, and the distant bird with wings clear. You lower your shoulders, torch extinguished against your hip, and gingerly squeeze through the gap. Your boots find solid earth, a mix of moss and fallen leaves, and the world bites itself. You stand upright in the embrace of jungle twilight, torch's ember, fading to a memory. Warmth from the setting sun brushes your face. You draw a deep breath of fresh air, lungs filling with life. Shadows of the temple's arches loom behind you, vines curling in welcoming arms. You smile through cracked lips, tears stinging your eyes as you realize you conquered the final lock, made the desperate turn, and reclaimed your freedom. You step away from the portal, leaving the keys behind a final offering to the temple that both tested and freed you. Your boots press into soft ground, each footprint a testament to will and endurance. The temple's doors remain sealed once more, but its heart bears your passage, your story carved into its ancient stone. You tilt your head back to the sky, where stars begin to emerge in the dusky blue, and whisper a vow you will not forget. You press forward into the jungle, twilight boots sinking into soft earth stained with decayed leaves and moss. The portal behind you stands sealed, a silent testament to the locks you turned and the passages you conquered. Ahead, a narrow earthen ramp slopes upward, carved long ago by hands you cannot see, leading toward a slit of golden light. Each step carries you further away from darkness and closer to sunlit freedom. Your lungs burn with exhilaration as you follow the ramp's gentle curve. Vines part of your touch, leaves brushing your arms like deep hands. The air brims with the scent of earth and flowering vines, a heady perfume that tugs at muscles stiffened by days of crawling and climbing. You lift an arm to shield your eyes as the light brightens, splashing across your path with broad dancing wheels. Your heart hammers as the ramp levels out into a low-ceilinged chamber, born of living rock. Drip stains mark every surface, but above cracks widen until you can see the sky. A shaft of sunlight pierces the ceiling, turning motes of dust into golden fireflies. You step into the beam, and heat blossoms on your cheeks. For the first time in 100 hours, you feel the sun's warmth settle on your skin, melting the chill that's closing in the temple's depths. Raise your face eyes closed, and let the sunlight wash over you. Every nerve tingles as if waking from a long slumber. You taste warmth on your tongue, and your chest expands with a breath so deep it feels like rebirth. Behind you, the temple's hush presses at the threshold, but here the world hums with life. Birdsong drifts through cracks, insects buzz in the beams, and leaves rustle in a breeze that feels like laughter. You open your eyes to a broken stone arch, half swallowed by vines. Beyond it, jungle canopy floats against a brilliant sky. You step forward, boots slipping on wet stone, and emerge onto the temple's outer terrace. Sunlight floods your vision, forcing you to squint against its intensity. You blink, letting the glare soften into shapes, twisted roots, ferns arching overhead, a distant copse of trees outlined against the sky. Your chest tightens with wonder. The temple's outer walls rise around you, carved in relief with serpents and lotus blooms, now alive with moss and fallen petals. You brush fingertips along the stone's rough surface, feeling every carving's depth and every crack's history. The carvings you once feared now welcome you as though acknowledging your passage. You trace a coiled serpent whose inlaid obsidian eye glints in the sun, and for a moment you swear and smile. You swallow hard, breathing in the scent of hot stone and flowering vines. You turn away from the walls and gaze down at the jungle floor far below. Thick canopy ripples in green waves and shafts of sunlight sketch golden paths. You can almost taste freedom in the breeze that drifts upward, carrying distant calls of monkeys and the rumble of an unseen river. You realize the outside world pulses with life you haven't felt since you first stepped into that sealed gate. Your knees buckle with relief and exhaustion. You lower yourself to a cracked stone bench, etched with fading glyphs of suns and open palms, symbols you chased through every chamber. You sit back against the warm stone and close your eyes against the light. You let memories of dank corridors and rattling mechanisms drift away, replaced by songs of birds and the hum of light. The temple's hungry heart fades to a distant whisper. A gentle wind brushes across your face, stirring sweat in your hair. You lean forward and brush earth from your palms, pressing them to your eyes to catch tears you didn't realize were coming. They taste of salt and relief. You lower your hands and let the tears fall free, each one a tribute to trials overcome. Hunger tugs at your belly, but for now you let the sun's embrace feed you. You stand shaking off stiffness in your limbs. The terrace stretches eastward, a crumbling walkway lined with statues half buried in greenery. You test each step, stones shifting under your weight as though greeting you. You move carefully, boots making soft thuds against weathered rock, until you reach the terrace's edge. There, a massive slab of stone opens onto a path winding downward through ferns and wildflowers. You follow the path as it descends, daylight filtering through leaves into a kaleidoscope of greens and golds. The air vibrates with life, hummingbirds dart past, dragonflies skim puddles glinting survive. But now is a moment for life's simple grace, for sun on your skin, wind in your hair, and the world's vast promise stretching beyond the temple's stone. You take a final look back at the vines-entwined archway, now silent in the afternoon light. Gratitude floods you. You overcame its cunning, befriended its mechanisms, honored its demands, and emerged into warmth. You turn away, shoulders squared, heart open to every new dawn. The sun's glow bathes you as you walk into unfurling grasslands, ready to rejoin the world you left behind. You step from the rolling grasslands into the narrow trail that winds toward the distant village, each footfall soft on packed earth. The sun dips low, painting the sky in bruised pink and gold. As you walk, you feel the warmth in your limbs ebb, replaced by a deep, trembling ache, a yet unfamiliar sensation of safety. Your pack seems lighter now. You touch the woven strap and feel its smooth fibers beneath your fingers, marveling at this simple comfort. Ahead, smoke curls from chimneys clustered among thatched roofs. Faint laughter drifts on the breeze, punctuated by the clang of cooking pots and the low murmur of conversation. You pause at the trail's edge and take it in children chasing each other across open courtyards, elders seated beneath mango trees, weaving mats from reeds. A sense of home stirs in you, a memory of shared meals, laughter under familiar skies. A young woman steps forward, apron stained with ash, carrying a wooden bowl brimming with rice porridge. She smiles warm without pity and holds the bowl out. You accept it with shaking hands, spooning warm grains into your mouth. Each bite soothes your parched throat and kneads the ache of your belly. You close your eyes, letting the porridge's gentle heat fill you. You open your eyes to see villagers gathering around. Mothers hush curious children, offering you seats on low benches. Men nod respectfully as they pass, laying aside broken baskets to welcome you. A chill breeze rustles their simple garments, but none shiver. They stand united, grinning with grace. You realize their village lies at the end of countless trials of steps taken through darkness and stone. Now you belong to them, if only for a moment. A seasoned healer appears, her hair threaded with grey. She kneels before you, pressing a cool cloth soaked in herbal infusion to your forehead. Its scent, mint and lemongrass, leans you back into your seat. Fingers gentle, she unpacks your wounds, scrapes along arms, bruises across ribs, cuts on your palms. She cleans each with tender care, murmuring blessings. You watch her deft movements, marveling that kindness exists in place of cruelty. Night falls fully, and lanterns flicker to life, swinging on posts to cast amber light across cobbled paths. The village square fills with music, a lone flute notes a soft melody, joined by drums tapping patiently at dusk's pace. A storyteller, an elder draped in ochre cloth, begins to speak, weaving tales of ancestors who braved lost temples and returned. You listen, every word resonating with your own journey. He beckons you forward. With unsteady legs, you rise and step into the lantern glow. All eyes turn to you. He places a wreath of woven vines and flowers atop your head, a symbol of passage. You feel its weight, fragrant and alive, settling your shoulders. The drums swell, and you raise your arms tentatively, then confidently sway into the rhythm. Each movement shakes loose the tension in your body, replacing it with wonder. Villagers join you in dance, young and old, barefoot, bright eyed. Their feet tracing simple patterns on stone. You follow their lead, arms outstretched, spinning slowly beneath lantern light. Laughter bubbles up inside you, soft at first, then full and clear. You realize it's the first time you've laughed since the temple's gate sealed behind you. The sound trembles through the night air, like birdsong. As the dance ends, you find yourself back on the trail you heard. The storyteller offers you a carved wooden talisman, a serpent coiled around your own hand. To remember, he says, you press it to your chest, feeling its carved grooves warm in your palm. It promises to find permanent and survival proof that you live beyond the temple's hunger. You bid farewell to your hosts, stepping onto the path that leads beyond rice paddies and gentle hills. The sky above glows with distant stars, each one a silent witness to your ordeal. You feel their light on your face as though guiding you forward. Your pack holds the talisman, the cloth band from the elder, and the fading echo of drumbeats. You walk into the night, every step carrying gratitude for shelter, for kindness, for life restored. Behind you, the village's lanterns glow like fireflies against darkness. Ahead, the world waits roads and cities, rivers and seas, life's rich tapestry unfurling anew. You take a final breath of night air, cool, fragrant, unbounded, and press onward, heartful, mind-clear soul reborn in the temple's crucible and the village's embrace. Now the pace slows. Your breath softens as the night settles around you, cloaking the path in gentle quiet. The weight of the journey eases from your shoulders, each muscle relaxing, uncoiling like vines released from stone. You feel your heartbeat in calm rhythm, a steady drum guiding you forward, no longer a frantic drum of survival, but a quiet hymn of release. The air carries the cool whisper of dew falling on leaves, the hush of incense rising in chorus beneath the moon. Each step sinks softly into earth and supports rather than threatens. Dust that once choked your lungs now lies settled with a gentle blanket over ancient trials. You sense every sensation, cool wind on skin, soothing as a mother's hand. The rustle of grass underfoot, a lullaby to weary feet. The faint sweet perfume of night blooming flowers, reminding you of beauty that draws. Your thoughts drift like lanterns on a pond flickering. Memories of flickering torchlight, now tender echoes rather than gripping fear. The image of the sealed door, the inverted staircase, the whispering walls all fade in softness into the landscape of your mind, where they rest as trophies, lessons carved in memory's stone. Ahead, the trail curves into darkness, and you welcome the unknown with calm confidence. Your pack is lighter now, weighed only by tokens of survival and kindness. Your heart is lighter too, buoyed by gratitude. You walk into the night as a traveler reborn, not broken by darkness, but forged by it, tempered in stone and fire. Let this quiet road carry you home, step by gentle step, into rest and renewal. Close your eyes on this path and feel the world embrace you, soft, forgiving, and alive with dawn's promise. 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 With dawn's promise.